Welcome to Inspirational Journeys of the Best Minds, the podcast where we uncover the struggles, strategies, and triumphs behind extraordinary leaders. Today, we're joined by Hamdan, founding partner at S 2015, and someone who has turned the world of audit, governance, and risk management on its head. With 24 years of global experience across four continents and as the former Chief Audit Officer at IMERGEY, Ali is known as the unconventional auditor, a disruptor with timeless values like integrity and empathy. Whether he's tackling cybersecurity, corporate governance, or operational transformation, his mission is the same: to challenge norms, empower teams, and build resilient organizations for the future. Welcome to the podcast, Ali.
Thank you for the kind words, Hala, and I'm very happy to be with you today.
Same here. So before we dive into the world of audits and transformations, let's rewind a little. Behind every unconventional and impressive leader is a story that often begins in the most unexpected of places.
Yeah.
So let's explore first about, what did you want to become as a kid and how did you become an auditor?
Well, when I reflect on my childhood, I was subject to a peer pressure, so I wanted to have a cool job. So neurosurgeon was my first choice. It was something cool. The healthcare sector in Lebanon was a beacon in the region. But as I evolved in my maturity and age, I turned into an auditor. Why? I gained it by NDA. My father, may his soul rest in peace, he was an esteemed auditor. And I always admired his dedication and his relentless determination to do the right thing. So I followed the same path, having in my mind an ambitious career filled with success and precision.
Mhm. I mean, it also seems that you have a lot of different chapters, in your book as well, and a lot of different phases. Can you pinpoint a single moment that changed the trajectory of your career, and what did it teach you?
Uh, in 24 years, I witnessed so many moments like that. To name a few, the first moment was the beginning of my career. I started with my dream job with Arthur Anderson, a dream that did not last for long because of what happened with Arthur Anderson in the US. Another experience similar, it was in 2010. I was working for a large group in Dubai, and the company I was working for had to shut down. And maybe the one that I want to focus on to answer your question is my executive MBA with London Business School. This is something I started in 2013. I graduated in 2015. And after making a massive financial investment, the key takeaway was serendipity. And that's a point that changed my trajectory in life, in the sense of being open to unknown, being open to unusual circumstances. And to give you an example, I was always approached in my career by certain countries for interesting opportunities, but in my mind I was always saying, no, I'm not going to entertain these opportunities. I'm not willing to move or relocate to these countries. After I finished my executive MBA, and that word got stuck in my mind, I remember I received a call from the headhunter, and they asked me, "Are you willing to consider relocating?" And the first thing that popped on my mind was serendipity, and I said, yes, let's do it. And to be honest, it was one of the best jobs in my career. It was a turning point in my professional career.
You mentioned two very interesting words here: dream, job, and serendipity. And I would like to maybe dig a little deeper here
Sure.
because dream job is a word or a term that a lot of us, use as well, especially the younger generation. So back when you were thinking about a dream job, did you have a specific role in mind? Did it look like a specific way for you?
For me, the dream job, it combines several aspects. One is having the right brand to be promotable and visible in terms of a talent. Second is the continuous development and investment by the organization and their people. We're living in a world today where many companies, they say Our people are our asset. So it would be inspiring to join an organization where that really walks the talk when it comes to saying that our people are our asset. Financials back then, it was not a key prerequisite for me. And if I tell you the details of my first job, what was the salary I got, and I left Lebanon, my home country, for this salary, you'll be surprised. But
Mm-hmm.
so Arthur Anderson, it was an organization global in all aspects. What they apply in terms of standard technology methodology in Japan, same thing is applied in the region, same thing is applied in the US and Europe. So it was consistent training, development on regular basis. So that was something for somebody at the beginning of his career. It was something very appealing.
So to jump off of that, the second concept that you talked about
Mhm.
is serendipity. Has your view on serendipity changed since then? Has it altered or morphed into something
It
bigger and
developed
better?
further. I'm a strong believer in experimentation. Um, Today, actually, there is a book that I'm one of my favorite books. It's called Mindsets. This is what makes the difference between a growth mindset and a fixed mindset. If you're not open to explore and experiment, you are in a fixed mindset state, and that makes our ability to cope with the evolving world we're living in today very challenging. So I'm a strong believer in continuous development and learning, tolerating failures, making mistakes, because this is the best way to keep improving.
I mean, have you always had this growth mindset? Because from what I know, it's not always something that is taught specifically. And so, has it been something that you've been working on since you were just starting out in your career, or was there someone specifically who kind of pointed it out to you at the start of your career to help build you up later on?
My short answer, no, it was not always there. And it was built over time with experience, exposure, and mistakes. And this is how I label mistakes in my career. I reframe the word mistakes. It's all about lessons learned. So today, let me give you
Mm-hmm.
a flavor of what I mean by that. Uh, when you're raised in a certain environment within a certain family, you inherit, or the family instills some values in you. So excellence, it's a value that I inherited from my father. However, with time, with experience, with the challenges I faced, the how has changed. The how to tackle the excellence part has changed. And for example, my dad, when it comes to excellence, for him failure was never an option. For me, after the experiments and exposures I got in my life across different businesses, different geographies, different stakeholders, for me, failure has become a necessity. So, if you are in the first bucket of where failure is not an option, so your ability to take risks is, or your appetite for taking risks is lower, and hence you cannot experiment more, and hence you're not in a room to innovate more. And that is a fixed mindset for me. With time, I switched to the other bucket, where it's a growth mindset.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that talking about failure kind of leads us into the next question that I wanted to explore with you, which is the most important lessons you've learned from failure, and it's also the moments that we learn the most about others, about ourselves. So it's actually a very introspective experience that we go through as well. But for you, has there been some important lessons along the way that you've learned from failure and helped you look at some of the more down moments of your personal and professional life as well?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, failure is a blessing. This is my takeaway. And especially with the way I reframed failure, I don't call it a failure, I call it a lesson learned. In my opinion, failures are stepping stones for innovation. Each new experience it brings its own unique insights and perspectives. Uh, and today, let's take the world we're living in, and take the term of agility. They keep talking about failing fast and learning
Mm,
faster, and this is how the world is evolving today. So I believe this is necessary today. There are some the value aspect does not evolve over time. However, that the mechanics of it, the how of it, has to evolve, and hence you need to accept failure. It's I'm applying even this in the way I'm dealing with my kids. I'm raising my two daughters. Today, instead of celebrating an ultimate success or having a problem with the failure, I switched the mindset to celebrate progress with them, because this is what really matters. If you only reward or reprimand the ability, people will be only driven by achievements, and
mhm,
if they cannot achieve, they will be demoralized and they will feel down. However, if you teach them, and if you inherit this, if you instill this mindset in them, that progress is very important even if it's not major, that completely changes their way of thinking.
so, Ali, who's the most influential person in your life, and how did they shape these values for you?
I think it's pretty obvious from the my answers to the previous questions how many times I mentioned the person. So my role model definitely is my father. I would say the number one value is service to others, and he sacrificed so many things in his life, even his own benefit, for the servicing of others, and including his family, his kids, myself, and my two sisters. Also, I learned, and he instilled in me great other great values, like integrity, like courage, like empathy, continuous learning and development. Um, However, as I said, these things have evolved over time. So the more exposure I got in my life, the more cultures and countries I visited, the more organizations I worked for, I started rounding these edges and fine tuning them in a way to adapt to the world that we're living in. I've shedded a light earlier on the excellence point, how he dealt with excellence and how I'm dealing with excellence nowadays. Another aspect is because coming from the perspective where failure is not an option, my dad used to meticulously plan every single detail, and it put him by default in a very serious mode, always focused on this target. You cannot but appreciate the perseverance and the determination to achieve the target, but he was missing other stuff. And this is what I fine tuned with time. I still have this determination and perseverance. However, I plan the big buckets. I don't plan the small details, because I open the room for some spontaneous moment and spontaneous experiences. And going back to the point of serendipity that I touched upon earlier, this is how I expose myself to these things.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I feel now we're kind of indirectly talking about your leadership style as well. And leadership
Hmm.
is a big topic that you care about, that you've expressed
Yeah,
in so many different platforms and discussions and opportunities before. But what are some
yeah.
practices or values that have shaped your leadership style specifically?
So I touched upon earlier the courage, the integrity, the dedication, the excellence. But there is one aspect which is very important for me, and I keep working on it because I want to answer your question about what are the practices, which is humility.
Mm,
And I'm going to be very blunt here, based on what I'm seeing in the different organizations I work for. People sometimes, when they sit in their ivory towers, they tend to disconnect from reality, and they tend to maybe not out of bad intentions, but the way they deal with people, they lose the connections, they disconnect from reality. So for me, humility is something very important, and the way I learned it is, I'm trying to translate here from Arabic, is the more senior you get, the more humble you should
mm,
become. And I still remember the words of my dad when he used to tell me, it's us who give value to the position, not the other way around. That being said, that has translated into some practices that I do on regular basis. One is I'm a mindfulness and meditation practitioner, so this is something very important for me. It keeps me grounded. Since 10 years, I have my personal executive coach. It's a personal investment from my side, and the main objective every time I change jobs or I move to a new role, I start with goal number one: how to keep my feet on the ground. Sometimes we tend as human beings to forget and to get excited. You know, I used to tell my team, sometimes you leave a meeting and I give you a very good feedback. You feel you leave the meeting, you feel you want to fly based on the feedback, and by this overwhelming feeling, you start harming other people or unintentionally. So that's why it's very important to be mindful, to remain humble, because every power that we have and every respect that we have, it's because of the power by default. This is the nature of a human being. However, the more you are humble, the more you can connect with people, and this is what will make a difference in the life of the people around you.
I mean, it's quite impressive, the practices that you've developed, over the years, and it speaks a lot to the person, you are, and because it's hard to develop those really consistent practices as well. So, like, what motivates you to keep going, to keep practicing, be mindful for 10 years? Like, that's not an easy practice to develop and to maintain as well.
Is to make a difference in the world we're living in simple words. Uh, Let me go back to a point that we discussed earlier, and I'm gonna answer indirectly your question. Uh, Today, when we talk about courage, and I always have this debate with some professionals around courage. You cannot send your staff to a training program so they become more courageous, right? So they have to be put in situations where they are tough and they need to come up with creative solutions, and that will show the courage. Same thing when it comes to mindfulness and humility. Today, when I look around me and I see how people and leaders they're behaving, uh, it is pushing me, given that I consider myself as a human centric leader. For me, the human element is very important. Without the people we cannot deliver anything. So when I see people around me how they behave, senior executives, I see talk the talk but not walk the talk. I see some gray behavioral traits. Instead of being demotivated by that, I believe that's an opportunity for me to show the difference and to show how you can make people feel. Because people, there is a famous quote about people will forget what you tell them and they will forget what you do to them, but they will never forget how you make them feel. And this is very important. And KPI for me to look at this, because I don't want to sound very philosophical and I'm just throwing some poetic stuff. Usually, auditors are the least approachable professionals in organization, because they're considered for so many people are they're like police. We get on our toes when we deal with them, etc. Believe it or not, in my last, I would say, 8 to 10 years, our function was the most approachable function. And I'm not saying this is because of me, because the whole system was working. So I was at the top, at the helm of the function, and tone at the top is very important. The team that I was leading, they started changing their behavior and they started becoming more humble. And as a result, we became more approachable. And this is ultimately what we want to do as auditors or control functions. You want to be the trusted advisor of the business.
I mean, it sounds like you developed very strong core values to how you lead your teams inside and outside of the office
Mhm,
as well. But you've also worked across MENA, Africa, Asia, and Europe. Where did you
mhm.
encounter the most surprising cultural gap, and how did you bridge it as a leader?
Uh, I would say everywhere. Each culture has its own traits and its own challenges. But going back to the point of serendipity, in during my executive MBA journey, I learned about a model, uh, mind blowing. It's called the Hofstede Cultural Dimensions Model. So believe it or not, every time I deal with a team, I understand what are the nationalities that I have on the team. Okay. And in this model, you go and plug the nationality, it explains to you on 6 dimensions what are the specifics about these nationalities. And I'm going to pick one. Of course, we cannot generalize, but at least it gives you an indication the general traits of these nationalities. One of the dimensions, it's called power distance. Power distance, it means the power of the hierarchy. So the more you are on the east side of the earth, so in Japan, Korea, Asia, power distance is very big.
Mm.
And it means when the boss says something, everybody out of respect, yes, will do it. And the more you move to the west, the power distance gets smaller and smaller. So people, they will have the edge to stand up in a meeting and tell their boss, no, I disagree. Uh, when you get deep and you dive into these cultures, sometimes there is a respect aspect of it. And today I live in a region, I admire the culture that they have when the ruler of Dubai, for example, says something. خلاص, they are so inspired by what he says, and they are reluctant to push back. But when you think about it in a professional context, in a function like ours, we're paid to have the edge to say no. And to build this muscle, you have to create an environment in the team, a culture where people are able to speak up and where people are psychologically safe to do that. And going back to my earlier point about setting the tone from the top, it starts by me being vulnerable
Mm.
in front of my team and me allowing myself to become vulnerable, because I'm telling the team indirectly it's okay to be vulnerable.
Mm.
Sometimes I'm vulnerable about the stress. Sometimes I'm vulnerable about the burnout. Sometimes I'm vulnerable about inability to deal with a challenge with a group CEO, for example. And I deal with them and I get their thoughts. So this is something very important. I don't consider them as challenges. Again, going back to the analogy of the failures, these are not failures, these are lessons.
Mm.
So that mix, if I wanna summarize my experience with culture, I would say I'm becoming a salad niçoise pot. So many ingredients, but very enriching and very delicious salad.
Yeah, I mean, it also shows that you do go above and beyond, for the people you're working with, whether it's for a short-term project or long-term, or whether it's your team or other people's teams, and it makes them feel heard and seen as well. And I think that level of transparency also reflects a lot of strength as well.
Yeah,
But I'm also sure,
agreed.
someone in your level of leadership, you've worked with a lot of different people, a lot of different generations as well. And as there are more younger generations entering the workforce, how can young professionals future proof their skills in your field?
In short, make sure to remain relevant.
Mm.
Today, we're living in a world where the only constant is change. So if you remain constant, you're going to be disrupted. I'm a big believer in continuous learning and development and continuous upskilling, reskilling, and upgrading. And this is why what I advise new generations, and not only new generations, even the existing and the old generations.
Mhm.
Today, in the way I lead my function, I have a clearly defined competency framework that is relevant, that's always benchmarked against the latest trends. People are assessed vis-a-vis this competency framework. We build a development plan for these capabilities on how to be upgraded and upskilled. I'll give you a small example. Today, if I think about audit, the latest trend of audit, how to deploy technology enablers in audit. And what I mean by technology enablers, I'm referring to data analytics, robotics, process mining. If you look at in my previous organization, the competency framework, data literacy has become a key prerequisite.
Mm.
It is not a nice to have. So this is a key basic skill set that everybody on the team should have it. So a- again, to cut a long story short, I think my advice for these new generations, what you learned at university in 2 3 years from now might be outdated. So make sure that you continuously learn and develop.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, there are so many advice that I feel you can give to the aspiring professionals and the younger professionals also entering the workforce. But is there one piece of advice you'd give to aspiring professionals, or would it be the same advice that you just shared with us?
You're talking to a found believer in diversity and inclusion, and for me, diversity is a source of richness. If I want to reflect on the main impacts I did in my previous jobs, it's driven by having the right mix around the table and ensuring that this mix is working well together. And when you think about it this way, you will not be influenced by genders, you will not be influenced by nationalities, you will not be influenced by any other traits that differentiate between people.
Mhm.
In my previous organization, I was leading a team of 68 people. Believe it or not, I had 16
Oh,
nationalities.
wow.
I had the age bracket from 20 to 58.
Mm.
I had 45% female on the team. More than 33% are in leadership roles. I had 20% emeritization. And this is a big percentage considered the situation, how the demographics in UAE.
Mhm.
That's a very high percentage. I strongly believe in this. If you ensure that you have the right mix around the table and this mix is gelling together well, expect miracles.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, I also want to go back to talking about the young professionals as they go become, a majority, more of the majority of the workforce. There's a lot of
Mm.
distractions, there's a lot of ambition, there's a lot of expectations as well. How do you see them dealing with that landscape going into the workforce?
The beauty of the new generation is the ability to speak up.
Mm.
And they speak up what's on their mind without any fear. So keep doing this. I believe sometimes in organizations silence is misunderstood.
Mm.
Silence is considered as acceptance. So I encourage you to speak up, to have the right dialogue, build the right rapport, invest in the right relationships, because this is what will make the difference in your career and in your trajectory. Um, uh, and one last comment about that is be clear on your values. Today, there are so many circumstances that will happen, so many incidents that will take place around you. Make sure that you're always anchored around your values, because whenever you're anchored around your values and you're behaving from these values, you will not be dragged into any unnecessary frustrating situation. You will deal with it as a cloud that will pass.
Mm.
However, you might have situations where you might derail from the path. It's okay. Everybody can derail from the past. No budget has been met 100%. No project has been completed as per the original plan 100%. But the values and the principles, this is what really matters. Remain anchored around your core values.
Mm. Well, knowing what you know now, which is a lot, as
Okay.
we as we have learned
All
as
right.
well, and it's very impressive. What's the first thing you tell your younger self on day one of their career?
Experiment as much as possible.
Okay.
There are so many things I missed in my career, in my life, not only career, not only professional side, on the personal side, because I did not have an appetite to make mistakes.
Mm.
I'm very grateful for where I am right now. I'm super thankful and appreciative for everything my family, my parents, my mentors did for me throughout my career. But I wish I had a higher appetite for experimentation. Nevertheless, just to show some consistency, I talk that there are no failures. It's a lesson learned. I'm experimenting now, but
Right.
in a controlled way.
Amazing. So as we near the end of our podcast, we like to, throw in a fun question. to wrap up as well.
Yeah.
So, our question is, if money and titles didn't matter, how would you measure your impact and what work truly brings you joy?
Like, given that I threw some philosophical stuff in the discussion, let me be consistent. uh, Actually, they don't. Money and titles, they don't matter. This is if you ask me, at the age of 45, do they matter? No, they don't, because they are impermanent. You might wake up one day, you don't have a job, the stock market crashed, you lost everything. You're talking to somebody, because of the economic crisis in Lebanon in 2019. I lost everything, so I'm rebuilding. Right, I'm going through a rebuilding phase in my career. Um, but what really matters to me is the legacy of substance that I'm leaving behind. Uh, what I witnessed in different organizations, in different societies, when I interact with people, is there is this dilemma of form over substance or substance over form. And let me be more to elaborate more here. A lot of talk the talk, but nobody is walking the talk. You attend a conference, or you hear a TED talk, or you read a book about something. Optically, things look fantastic, but when you look into the substance, it's not doing the right thing. I believe when we are committed to doing the right thing, that will have an impact on people, how they feel, and this is the legacy that you're leaving behind. For me, this is what brings me joy. If I feel I'm contributing to the development of people, to lifting others. Today, being in a powerful position is a huge responsibility. It's a big privilege. It's a lot of benefits, but a privilege comes with a responsibility, and the responsibility is how you can give back to the community, how you can give back to your team, how you can light the path for people, like my own path was crafted. So I would stress on the substance legacy I would leave behind.
Well, Ali, I have so many more questions that I would love to ask, but I'm afraid I can't keep you on for longer because I know you have a very busy schedule. But thank you so much for your time, and I'm sure our audience will find so much value in the experiences and wisdom that you've shared with us today. So thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure being with you, and looking forward to connecting soon.
Amazing. Thank you so much.